Chelsea, Chelsea. Thank you so much. For anybody who, I don't know, doesn't know Chelsea Castle, she is the head of content and brand at Close. Thank you very much for bantering with me today. This is a hot topic on content, and I'm really excited to be talking to you about it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Bailey. I'm excited to chat with you.
Thank you. So, why am I excited? Well, content. I think that of all the changes in marketing that have taken place and will take place, I believe that content is the one element, a huge element, that's going to have or undergo the most amount of change that we will see. I think that companies are realizing that they can't just throw money on campaigns. They can't just throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. They have to create a message and a story and content that people are interested in. And figuring that out is mind-boggling, exciting, weary, all of the above. But it's something that every company is going to have to crack if they want to, succeed. How are you experiencing it? I mean, what are you seeing that's happening on the content world and the changes there?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different things. Of course, the top of mind is AI, and whether it's an influence from AI or just influence from the market in general, I think everything in sales and marketing is getting harder. We're all kind of marketing and selling something that we deem is essential to other companies' operations. So I mentioned that to say that that is connected to why storytelling and almost getting back to the basics, like as you were saying, what you were just saying is all of those things are fundamentals and we strayed away from that. So maybe that's another thread that we can go down, but we're deeming ourselves as essential to other business operations. And that should be connected to what is human. And I think that to me is the crux of all of it is we get caught up in market influence or competition or chasing VC funding and going up market. And we forget that we're still humans selling to humans, and there's trust involved and there's connection involved. And understandably so, we've all been there where we get so caught up in driving conversion that we constantly and consistently miss creating connection. And it's difficult, right? It's really hard, of course. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having these conversations, on LinkedIn and these conversations with you.
Yep.
It's really hard because you still have to drive results at the end of the day. You still have to, drive revenue and hit your goals. And it's a long-term balance and a short-term balance. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about things lately.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I harp on about it nonstop about sort of jumping to the marriage proposal on your first date kind of approach to content or the campaigns that we run. Obviously, companies are understanding that, but I think that the companies that really will succeed going forward are the companies that will understand their ICP on a much deeper level. And we will no longer be sort of like an ICP as in Billy is the, owner of a marketing agency, therefore she's interested in ABCD. Billy is also a mother. She lives in a certain neighborhood. She drives a certain car. She enjoys listening to certain podcasts. And she also is interested in a certain type of marketing for certain types of clients. And I think that the companies that really manage to dive into the more personalization, AI is obviously helping with that. They are the ones that are going to see the major shifts. It's a huge investment. The companies are going to need to niche down in order to succeed more. And the mass market sort of approach of, we've just released a blog. It's really interesting. Why isn't everybody coming to read it? It's just not going to happen anymore.
The latter thing that you said, though, makes me think about how we're trying to approach content at Close, where every single thing we produce, whether it's a video or an article or a LinkedIn post, we always want to think, what is the one specific person we're creating this for? Not just ICP. We have multiple ICPs.
Yeah.
But who is the specific person? Do you know an AE from your last role who you think needs to hear the advice you're writing in this LinkedIn post? Imagine them and write it for them. This is an old school writing, journalism tactic, right? So trying to think through the lens, when you talk about niching down, that's where my brain goes of every single thing you should produce should be really targeted with who is the exact person you're trying to reach.
And I know that a number of companies have tried to tackle this, but there isn't a company today that has managed to take one webinar really and really create videos out of it, and really create a blog post out of it, and really manage to create ads out of it, and then sort of like email nurtures, etc., etc. So I think that that's sort of like that company that does that, A, pay me royalty, please, and B, so like we'll really be helping the future marketer, because that's what we're going to need to do. Really, really cater to in a variety of formats, the same concept, the same content.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. What's fascinating there is there are tools that can help you with some of that, but you still have to do the heavy lifting. And
Yes,
that to
exactly.
me is the muscle that we're really going to have to work on. Content marketing as a role and a discipline is evolving so much, almost to a point that it's a little scary for me.
Yep.
I'm a writer by trade. I studied
Mm.
journalism. So I've only just now gotten comfortable accepting that content can mean many things. It's a myriad
Yep.
of things, including video, social, etc. And I think in the future, it's obviously going to be significantly different than it is today, even with more AI agents and that sort of thing. But philosophically or like existentially thinking, I actually think there's going to be more disconnection happening in society and offline living, where I actually think we're going to have to get less dependent on our digital marketing.
Really?
Where I do.
Why? Why'd
Yeah.
you say that? That's really interesting. Why?
This might be like a long ways down the road. I'm not saying this will happen in like a year or
Yeah.
even a few years, but I think everything happening economically, politically, societally in the United States, but also globally, we're seeing this where the internet and everything around social media, like everything around technology and how it's existed
Mm-hmm.
over the last 2 decades, has actually made us very connected, yet more disconnected than ever. When you get on Threads or Twitter, I don't think most of those things that I see are real. I don't think they're real people, or at least I don't think they're real people engaging as real people. You know, all of the avatars are
Yep.
fake, or the majority of them
Yep.
are fake. Even reviews, the other day I was looking at reviews for something. I'm like, I don't even know if I can trust reviews anymore, because
Yeah.
how do I know
Yeah.
what's real or not?
Right.
So I think there's a lot of different threads around that. But I think as humans and just the state of the era that we're in, I think we're so disconnected that we're seeing a very strong impetus and urge to reconnect in community, in real life community more than ever. So I think we'll start to see a snowball effect of that. I think eventually like that'll also change then the channels through which we market.
Everything in our home is connected. Everything, you know, and so we can't really hide away from anything. Like even booking a restaurant, you know, you need to go through an app, etc. So I think that what's going to happen is we're going to have somebody's going to have to create a human to like a human identifier, so to speak, so that we
Mm-hmm.
know that the avatar that is appearing, or that the human that's appearing is an avatar or is a human, etc., etc. Somebody's going to have to come up with that. And we are working with DID, for example, on avatars, and they have a stamp, and they talk a lot about sort of like how they're working towards making it easy for people to identify whether it's an avatar or a real person.
I think maybe more of like the heart of what I am hypothesizing of our wild future is are the channels through which we know now, I think are going to look completely different in a few years,
Oh
and
yeah, I agree with
how
that
we need to connect
100%.
with people
Yeah.
in real life events, like from as a marketing channel. I'm
Yeah.
more over the last couple of years since COVID. I think I'm more bullish, and many people are more bullish on that than ever.
Yep.
So I think all of it is just going to change in a way that's really difficult to really imagine, which kind of taking us
Yeah.
back to AI.
What's interesting over the years is that, and I'm a bit of a content snob, I admit.
I think that's a
And
wonderful quality.
yeah, but there are so few companies that I can say are doing a really good job with their content, both in the way that they're creative with their content, both the amount of content they produce, how they're speaking to their target audience. And so like the one that springs to mind, or two that spring to mind for me as a marketer, is Winter. So I know that you go to the winter conference as well, spring, right?
Mhm.
I'd love to go there. Not this year, maybe next year. But I think that the way the Pep is in the front the whole time with his videos and his newsletters, and also when you go on their website, I just think that I want to read what's there, because it's speaking to me as an educated marketer, and I always, not always, usually have something to gain from reading or even skimming through what it is that they've written. and I think they do an amazing job. And I think on the cybersecurity front, we have a lot of cybersecurity clients. Wiz does a really good job with their content as well, because again, it's just, you can see that there is thought behind it. There's a strategy behind it. And it's not just like, oh, let's produce a blog about this because we haven't produced a blog for a while.
So Clay, for example, they're a
Yes,
very hot
I
startup
love
right
their
now.
website.
So they're a very
Yes.
easy, example of someone who's doing it great. But what's fascinating to me about Clay is their product is so differentiated, and they've been building over the last few years. I actually don't know how long they've been a company, but at least building, from my knowledge, over the last few years of building this really strong consultancy and partner community. And it's not like all of a sudden they're a unicorn and all of a sudden everyone knows them and all of a sudden they're the hot brand. They've been building for a long time, and it's a product that really set off the fire of
Yeah.
why they are what they are today. And then you have like offshoots, right? Where I think like every lever that a company needs to pull, I really admire them because I think they're doing every single one really well. Like they're doing creative content well, they're doing data content well, they're doing conceptual product content well. The brand from a visual identity and like brand voice and tone perspective, like everything is just very inspiring. And it's one of those brands you look at and you can get ideas from
Yes.
without feeling like you're copy. Like you kind of want to, I think a great brand is also one that like inspires you, like not from a, I
Yes,
want to copy
absolutely.
that perspective, but
Mm-hmm.
you feel a little bit of inspiration in your own content. And when you're talking about winter and pep, that also makes me think of Dave Gearhart in Exit 5,
Yeah.
or I'm a big fan of ComScore and their CEO, Mac Redden. All of that together, all of those companies, all of those examples are people-powered marketing, people-powered content, which has always been like the core ethos of like how I think about my content philosophy personally, but also the value I try to bring to every company and every person I work with, where the more you can leverage the people internally and externally, customers, employees, founder-led marketing, even at Clothes, for example. So our CEO, Steli FD, 5 to 10 years ago, he was doing founder-led marketing, creating videos on YouTube about sales before that term was ever thought
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
And it was inherent in his expertise and who he was in being a charismatic, excellent speaker. So that to me, like, when we're kind of bringing that back, but all of those things together are really paramount to, I think, everything that we've kind of been talking about for the last 20
Yeah.
minutes of like what's going to be the most important going forward for content marketers.
So when you were saying that about the CEO, it's almost as if I'd like CEOs to be listening to this banter, because I know that most marketers, most of our colleagues know this. Their problem often is convincing the C-level to stop being so serious, to get more in front of the camera, to do more thought leadership pieces, to let them do their job, to let the content marketers do their job. Because, if you've chosen to go into content, it's usually because you're kind of good at it and you have a certain vision of where you want to take the company and the brand. And I find that the C-level, especially the CEO, is basically sort of like is preventing them from doing that for a variety of reasons. For they don't want to be ridiculed. They don't want to be taken as a non-serious company. Their competitors aren't doing it that way, and their competitors are very successful. So why not do more of the same? Or they just don't want to. But you've hired a content marketer. Let them do their job. Like, seriously, let the experts do their job. That's what really gets me.
Yeah, preach, Billy. There's actually a LinkedIn post this morning from a friend of mine who I engage with, where she was kind of talking about something similar, and how a lot of times people will go out, people being leaders, directors, CEOs, trying to find someone who they think like, we need someone to come in and shake things up. Was what my friend wrote this morning. We need people to challenge us and be innovative and be bold and shake things up. And then you hire the person. It's like you wanted them to, if you want to be challenged, if you want to do things differently, if you want to be bold, if you want to be a disruptive, challenging brand, then let them do that. Like
Exactly.
you hired the person for that. Let them, like, give them space to actually do that.
We need to talk about this marketing sin, that marketers get used to something working and then carry on producing it, which is why we have millions of ebooks and white papers out there that nobody reads. Blogs also in decline. soon the really popular surveys are also going to be like, oh my God, not another survey. I think that marketers need to just carry on mixing and doing new things as opposed to getting into the groove of the thing that's working.
Definitely. And I love what you said earlier about the minimum viable content almost. It's like
Yeah.
if you have a measuring stick for every piece of content before you hit publish or before you say you're done, and done's better than perfect, then it has to at least hit like a certain barometer on your
Yeah.
measuring stick, right, before it goes out. I like to think about content like a product, where if you think about like when the product team is releasing a feature, maybe they're releasing it when it's also kind of hitting that MVP level. It's like the minimum viable level that it needs to go out,
Yeah.
right? It goes through QA. Like we need to be thinking about content in the same way that people build products, where we think about like the amount of research and thought and customer research and intel and competitive intelligence and like QA and care, and also then like updating and repurposing and fixing and debugging. Like I think if we think about content that way, then we should be kind of mitigating some of what you raised there, because sometimes a new feature gets released and like they know it's not perfect, they know they're going to update it later. Like why don't we think about content the same? And I definitely agree about the content mix, because I like to think about every channel that I'm producing content on, whether it's our website or a certain social media channel, as like a heartbeat. So you have like some ebbs and flows. You have, or I always use the analogy of like a heartbeat or like a shish kebab, where you have like a pepper and then you've got your onion and then you've got your meat. Like you've got the meat on the stick, and then you've got a variety of like flavors and types of flavors and nutrition levels. We think a lot about like high nutrition content, but then we mix that up with things that are maybe lighter or funnier.
I was going to talk about like a score, a content quality score, but your shish kebab,
Mm.
that blows my score out of the kebab place. I mean, seriously, that's a brilliant. That's brilliant. I'm definitely going to be using your shish kebab
It
analogy.
works.
Other content predictions for the future. I'm saying the death of the ebook and the white paper. I'm saying that the death of the survey shortly as well. I think all of these things are just sort of like done to death. I think long live the case study, but the case study that's done well. The death of the case study where they just give you sort of like really vanilla compliments and don't really tell you anything about how they did it and what the pros and cons are, and being really real about not everything was beautiful during that project. Not everything worked seamlessly. Let's talk about all of the elements, or the good and the bad. What do you think? What else is going to happen? What else are we going to see?
Yeah, I think the first few things that come to mind for me is cutting through the noise on channels
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be harder than ever, which feels like a low-hanging fruit prediction, but I think when we think about AI creating a race to the bottom, sure, maybe the good stuff is easier to identify, but it's going to be like wading through a lot more garbage to get there.
Yep.
And I think people are going to go in two different directions. They're either going to understand that the right approach to AI is with a human in the loop and use AI to emphasize your human qualities even more. Like in sales, for example, we think about how AI can kind of like get rid of all of the bullshit, and on like how automation can help you with like the manual stuff so that you can focus on building a relationship, for example. So there's that path. And then the other path is like really full steam ahead AI for everything, and then that's just going to create like, okay, like you're going to kind of tell like who's using it with like
Yep.
human in the loop, and then who's using it in a way that's just like creating a lot of mess and then kind of making it harder for everyone else. So through that lens, I think being really creative is going to be one of the most important skills going forward, because AI can't do that. AI genuinely cannot, like, it still can't understand context, which is like the biggest.
Yes, I
And
agree.
related to that, this is very optimistically optimistic of me, but maybe that means that content teams and content marketers and marketers in general are finally going to get more respect,
Oh,
because
yes, that would be nice.
yeah, we're typically like,
RESPECT.
seriously,
Yes.
we are always, I shouldn't say always, but we are often the scapegoat for
Yes.
something going wrong in the business. And attribution is never, even when we fight our hardest and the best tools are out there helping us, like attribution is really hard to rely on to make that case for ourselves. So maybe when things are noisier than ever and AI is creating a lot of garbage out there, we'll finally start to like get more respect because of what we do is just as hard as sales. It's all psychology and connecting human to human in two different ways.
Amen. Seriously, you wrapped this up amazingly. I love the respect piece. Love it. Love it. There isn't anybody who's listening to this who doesn't want more respect. Amazing. Chelsea, I could carry on talking to you for a very long time, but you've got a day's work ahead of you. And we've run out of time. But thank you so much. You're a gem. And I hope to see you soon. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Wonderful. Thanks, Billy.